Tanto gentile e tanto onesta pare la donna mia quando ella altrui saluta, ch'ogni lingua divien tremando muta e gli occhi non l'ardiscon di guardare. Ella si va sentendosi laudare benignamente d'umiltà vestuta e par che sia una cosa venuta da cielo in terra a miracol mostrare. Mostrasi sì piacente a chi la mira, che dà per gli occhi una dolcezza al core che intender non la può chi non la prova. E par che delle sue labbia si muova un spirito soave, pien d'amore, che va dicendo all'anima, sospira. Woman is virtuous, humble, and graceful. Her beauty does not tempt the eye, but redirects it to heaven. She's a miracle on earth, a selfless being. Woman is sweet, pleasing to the heart, a comfort for man's soul. She's a mother, a virgin, forgiving, and devout. Most importantly, however, she's anything but real. With this poem by Dante on the 700th anniversary of his death, I'd like to welcome you all to our third Pirandello on Air meeting. My name is Ana Ilievska, and I am board member and membership secretary of the Pirandello Society of America, as well as humanities teaching fellow at the University of Chicago. My guest today is Daniela Bini, professor of Italian and comparative literature at UT Austin and former chair of the French and Italian department there. Daniela has published more than 70 essays on various topics such as Giovanni Verga, Svevo, Giuseppe Verdi, Pasolini, the Taviani brothers, Marco Bellocchio, etc., and is the author of monographs on Leopardi, Carlo Michelstetter, and 2 books on women in Pirandello and other Italian figures. Currently, she is working on the representation of women in 19th century Italian opera. Today, I will be talking to Daniela about Pirandello's women and such infamous concepts as mammismo, familismo, and stilnovismo, patologico in Italian literature and culture. Welcome, Daniela. Great to have you here.
And great for me to be here. Thank you, Anna. I think your initiative is really remarkable and laudable, and I enjoyed the first 2. And so I hope I am, able to keep the same level.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And this is such a topic. I mean, as women, as scholars, how can we not talk about this, especially Pirandello? It gives us so much material to discuss this. So, right. Daniela, so how is it going in Austin? How are things there?
It has been quite a nightmare, yes. Very surreal world. And in fact, the first thing I want to say as a disclaimer or an apology, is that I have not spoken, first of all, I have not spoken English since December, because this semester I'm teaching via Zoom 2 courses in Italian. And secondly, I have not spoken at all, either English or Italian, for 10 days, because we have not been teaching. They cancel all classes, even online classes. And my husband is a man of few words. And so I have not had a chance to, display my rhetoric.
As the vocal cords, yeah.
Please be, patient and understanding if I'm not, as articulate as I would like to be.
Excellent. Okay, Daniela, so let's start out with a more general topic. So tell me, how did you become interested in Pirandello? I see that you kind of have an interest for peripheral figures, if I may call them that, women, Pirandello, and your second book was on Carlo Michelstetter. So how did this happen?
Okay. I studied philosophy at the University of Rome. So my first degree la laurea was in philosophy. And actually my dissertation was on Plato. So my concentration was on Greek philosophy, classical philosophy. So going from that to Michelstetter was quite a natural, trajectory. Of course, when I came to the United States, because those books I wrote here and not in Italy, my dissertation was on Plato. But when I came without knowing any English, I could not enroll in a graduate program in philosophy, which is what I would have liked, because I had no language. And, it's not very easy to follow, courses on philosophy or in philosophy in English when you don't know the language. So I resort to comparative literature because I knew some French, because I knew Latin, I knew Greek. I could do some classics together with, and Italian, of course. So I had enough comparative stuff to put together, but the English was my really weakness. So in fact, my first book was on Leopardi, and still the philosophical aspect more than, the poetical, or at least I tried to work on both, but philosophy was still, my main interest. So Mikkelstetter was, came naturally because of his interest in the classics. Actually, his main book, La persuasione e la retorica, was born as a dissertation, a thesis, una tesi di laurea on those two concepts, persuasion and rhetoric, in Plato and Aristotle. So it was really my field. And that's why, of course, it took me in a different direction. But one reason was precisely this connection. The fact is that both, Mikkelstetter and Pirandello, and that's how, I got to Pirandello after Mikkelstetter, were concerned, or at least one of their actually strong belief, which is mine as well, is that of the inadequacy of verbal language. And the mistrust in words. Of course, Nietzsche said that too, and Nietzsche was another great influence, in me as well, for me as well. So they both, Mikkelstetter as well as Pirandello, do not believe in the possibility of communication, or at least the risk that communication implies. And what actually that also goes with is a mistrust and attack of rhetoric, because clearly, rhetoric is a misuse of language, is an abuse of language, and is something that both of them, Pirandello as well as Mikkelstetter, of course, were attacking. And they were trying to warn us of the risk. And, this is a very timely subject. I mean, it's an eternal subject. But now, with this plethora of media that we have, and we have plenty of examples, of course, of the misuse of language, it's so timely and it's so relevant. So the possibility of the constant being misunderstood, and the difficulty of being really completely understood. And this is an issue, that Pirandello has, and Mikkelstetter as well. And actually, if I may sort of connect this discourse with your first conversation that you had with some of our colleagues at PSA, I was a little surprised by the fact, I forgot who said that it was difficult to teach Pirandello to young students. For me, is the contrary, in the sense, yes, of course, there are some texts, they are difficult, they are dense, they need some explanation. But, normally I introduce Pirandello with, some quotes that I place on the screen that I think are so not only relevant, but so enlightening and so clear. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read just, a couple. Those besides come from his major works: 6 Characters in Search of Another, Henry IV, and even Uno Nessuno e Centomila, One No One and 100,000, which is one of for me, after Delay Mattia Pascal, is his masterpiece. Of course, I know that you are sort of, you have your preference for Serafino Gubbio. But anyway, when they read a quote like this, but don't you see, and I'm here reading, it's a translation of Pirandello, but don't you see that the whole trouble lies here in words? Words. Each one of us has within him a whole world of things. each one of us his own special world. And how can we ever come to an understanding if I put in the words I utter the sense and value of things as I see them, while you, who listen to me, must inevitably translate them according to the conception of things each one of you has within himself. We think we understand each other, but we never really do, or at least not completely. Now, this is a sentence that I don't think is so difficult for students to understand. And because everybody has the experience of being misunderstood, I didn't mean that. Why did you get offended? That's not what I really had in mind when I told you this. And again, no one, this is from no one in 100,000. Do you know on what everything rests? This is the second quote. On a presumption, and may God keep it forever, the presumption, the reality, the way it is for you must be the same for everyone else, without the tiniest suspicion that the entire reality that surrounds you does not have for the others any heavier consistence than smoke. But, I then give them example, and I have another one. If we have time, I read you that too. But I give them also the example after that about how we perceive not only facts, events, but in different ways, but also people. It's a very banal, stupid example that I always tell them. I say, okay, here you are, you perceive and you see Daniela, your teacher, in a way. Do you think my husband sees me the same way? Do you think my children perceive me as you are perceiving me now? And then tomorrow, if you have a headache or if you have fought with your girlfriend, you might perceive me even differently because you are in a bad mood. So is that so strange? And of course, they realize that it's very easy to agree with something like that. Yeah. And that brings me, and this I can do it, as you can see, in 5 minutes, the first day that I introduced Pirandello, it brings me to what and why Pirandello is so relevant. Because, of course, I cannot expect everybody has the same philosophy as he and I have. But the lesson I want them to learn that Pirandello is teaching us is a lesson of tolerance. Because if nobody is going to make me perceive you in a different way. I believe that my perception is correct. Yes, but precisely because I know that my perception is different from yours, I have to respect yours. So if there is a very beautiful piece in, I don't know which scene is in Act 1 of Così se vi pare, it is so if you think so, where Lamberto Laudisi, the raisonneur, actually is trying to show precisely this to the group of people. They are so curious of finding out what's going on with these two newcomers to the town who actually are living great, and so everybody is gossiping about them. And he actually is giving an example, and he has a couple, husband and wife, and he shows them that the way that the wife perceives him is not the same way as the husband, although they are, husband and wife. And so they should be similar in taste, in knowledge, in perception. And at the end of all this, he says, yeah, you can very well, and you should absolutely believe in what you see and perceive, but respect the way that I believe and perceive,
I think it's a valuable message, absolutely.
So that's why I think it's not too difficult to teach Pirandello.
Yeah, the difficulty, I agree with you. Teaching him like this, taking certain aspects of his work and presenting them to students, those work. The problem is more like keeping students reading the entire novel and entire book. That's what kind of they find difficult. They find it difficult to remain in the world that Pirandello gives us. Yeah. In any case, Daniela, I really like what you said about Mikestetter and Pirandello, so that they both somehow deal with the inadequacy of verbal language. And this connects very well to the raisonneur that you identified in Pirandello as this male character that usually at the end of the novel or the story goes mute, loses his language. It kind of reaches a linguistic aporia. And we had that with Vitangelo Moscarda, right, and Serafino Gubbio in particular. And this is where the difference comes in between the women and the men in Pirandello. So let's transition a little bit more towards Pirandello and his books. So the two books that I'm going to be talking to you about most are these two. Pirandello and His Muse, The Place for Marta Abba from 1998, published by University Press of Florida, and your most recent book that is actually just about to get published, 2021, by Farley Dickinson University Press, Portrait of the Artist and His Mother.
It's come out already.
It's come out already, right. Okay. Yes, I had the digital edition from the University of Chicago. Currently, it's a mess. All right, so I felt like the first book was a bit gentler on Pirandello. And I quote you, you said, you want to separate Pirandello, the man, from Pirandello, the artist, and show how the latter redeems the former. And for those of you who haven't read this book, I had quite a difficult and interesting time reading this book, which is marvelously written. It's very easy to read, but the content, especially if you're a woman and if you ever tried dating an Italian man, and can be very, very triggering for sure. But so I was very, very mad at Pirandello at the beginning of your book. And then I was waiting for that moment in which you redeem him. And I think you make an excellent case for it. We can definitely see two different Pirandellos, Pirandello in his real life, and then Pirandello in the way he depicts women and the way he kind of denounces male dominion in his novels. But then the second book, I feel like the second book is a bit harsher, and I loved your introduction when you write this book grew out of an attempt to exorcise some demons that have accompanied me throughout much of my life, adult life, and then you say, and I have 2 sons and thank God a daughter. How is that kind of how has the years between these two books have helped you change your perspective on Pirandello? Has it changed at all in this aspect or not?
This is too much. Okay. Now, first, let's go in order, chronologically. As I said, my main interest is in philosophy, still now, in a way. And I was really completely taken by Pirandello's philosophy. Mm-hmm. I was not at all doing anything with gender study, with women's studies, coming besides from an Italian culture, which was a male culture, no? We know that. I had not even read an essay written by a woman.
Wow.
No. In my days, I mean, I'm old. I studied, many years ago. In Italy, forget it. I didn't even have a professor at university, a woman. But even here, when I was here, and in my graduate studies, they were, well, how many? 40 years ago, forgot. I did not. Very rarely I read something written, a critical, study written by a woman. And especially if I was reading Italian criticism. Now there are some women, writing in Italy on Pirandello, but then absolutely none. So as I was getting more and more involved with Pirandello, I had to start reading something about his life because, I do believe in the historical context. I don't take an author completely out of, context. So I thought I have to read biography. I have to read something about his life. And that's when I was shocked because I knew the revolutionary Pirandello. I had lived with the revolutionary intellectual philosopher for, 3-4 years. And then I said, what's this? So the first thing that shocked me was, of course, his marriage. Now, yes, we knew that in those days, marriage were arranged by fathers, again. They were very often business deals, okay? But Pirandello would accept something like that? He studied in Bonn, in Germany. He was moved to Rome, where he wanted to be, of course, because he wanted to be in the center of, culture, and he had contacts with magazines, with intellectuals. So it had no plans to live in Sicily. And here you have, Pirandello having, receiving a letter from Pop saying, I found a wife for you.
Yeah.
And he goes to Agrigento and meets this young woman who actually was raised in not a convent, but certainly in a religious school with nuns, had sisters, and actually she lost her mother in a delivery while she was delivering a baby because her father
Right.
let
Doctor, right?
the doctor come. Yes.
Yeah.
So you can already see what type of mentality this poor woman could have. A young woman with no preparation whatsoever about life. And he accepts her. I mean, he spends, a couple of weeks in Agrigento meeting her always with other people, of course, members of the family, because they never met alone. Then he would go back to Rome and write her letters, which are incredible. I mean, how can a man with that, mind write to a woman who has no intellectual preparation, no actually any type of maturity or experience, or write letters that would completely, I don't know, overwhelm them. Yeah, overwhelm her, because, he would just pour out his philosophical doubts, existential crisis, the void that surrounded him. But Antonietta will bring light into my life. You will be my savior.
Yeah, I have a little quote, Daniela, from one of the letters. So Pirandello just basically, after having studied in Bonn, right, he goes to Rome, and then his dad finds him a wife. He packs his bags and goes to Agrigento to get to know her. And then he calls her very often like such a dear little girl. And then one of the letters that you quote, he says, "Ora il mio sole sei tu, e tu sei la mia pace, il mio scopo. Ora esco dal labirinto." This is what he's writing to his wife-to-be.
With that, what do you think the reaction could be to that? But you see, again, you read biography, people don't, these historians, the critics, they didn't care about the reactions. Very, very little was written about this poor woman. I had to wait to read the letters that were published by the daughter of Lieta, who actually Lieta brought to her mother when her mother was already in the mental clinic.
Yeah,
they go to each other.
It's this fact for the audience who doesn't know. So Pirandello's wife eventually ended up in a mental hospital, and he basically left her there, right?
Yeah, and again, that's another thing. The second thing that it's not that surprised me, but angered me was the eulogies, constant eulogies about, you write on Pirandello, who is a genius. And so, there cannot be anything, wrong with him. So poor Pirandello, he actually was so, patient. He stood next to this mad wife. First of all, why did she get mad? That's something else. He probably had something to do with that too, in addition to the loss of the dowry, but that's another story. So poor Pirandello kept next to him, this mad woman. He was patient. He sacrificed himself. Wait a minute. I mean, yes, I'm sure they must not have been easy. Certainly. And it wasn't easy, especially for Lieta, the daughter. But, he used her. I mean, Pirandello believed in madness. He knew the madness is in all of us. He always said that the line between sanity and insanity is so labile. Labile. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Stable.
And, we can very well go from one to the other, with just, in a second.
So he used real-life women for artistic material, basically.
Yes. I mean, it was a source for him of inspiration. Besides, we know that she appeared, in many characters of his works. So, yes, it was certainly not an easy life for him, but also, and let's also say that was not just spirit of sacrifice of him. And then when she was actually put into this clinic after Stefano came back from the war, from prison camp. So in 1918, more or less, he sort of got stuck to, if I can say it, Lieta, his daughter, because she had to take Mama's role. Yeah. She had to become his, caretaker, and absolutely satisfy all his, needs, and not sexual, of course, but that's a completely different story. Yeah. We are gonna get to that eventually. But Lieta too was with him and did everything for him. But when she married and went to Chile with her husband, you should read, and you probably, if you...
I have 2 quotes that I would like to read if you...
Yes, the letters that he wrote to this daughter, but even the first letter, after he leaves her and puts her on a ship that goes to the Americas, the letter that he started writing to her right away.
Right. Yeah. So you wrote in your book that why aren't we listening to the voice of, for instance, the old maid of the house of Pirandello's wife, who remembered Pirandello, I quote, not as a great writer, but as a man who betrayed his wife with le ballerine, with the dancers. That's how the servant remembered him. And then the letters to Lieta, I have to say, were quite shocking. So as you said, this girl gets married. She's going to Argentina. To Chile? Chile. She's going to Chile on what I can imagine is quite a difficult cruise at the time with the ship. And he writes to her immediately, and I have an excerpt, I will die without you. You should come back. La casa mia par vuota come la vita mia. Bisogna che tu ritorni presto, Lilinetta mia piccola bella. Se no, papà morrà d'angoscia. This is, yeah. He set her up for a failed marriage, I can imagine, or any kind of relationship.
And this is again, but this is recurrent. All his letters are like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, they talk about many things, but there is always this appeal. Imagine how she can feel. Yeah, of course, it was a double sword. Because he supported her. And that's the other very difficult thing.
Yeah. So he could. Basically,
yeah, of course, she was supported by him financially. She kept also asking for help, and that's a way, that the tie is cannot be broken.
It became like a mutual dependence. So
absolutely.
Daniela, 2 terms that I would really want to talk about, no, actually 3 with you today, and I think the audience will be interested to hear. Let's talk a little bit about mammismo. Where does that come from, familismo, and how did they contribute to to the specific view of woman that we have in Italian society and culture, and how does that connect to stilnovismo patologico, as was defined by Sciascia? Before we talk about mammismo, though, I would like to show a very quick video that I think you would like, Daniela. Let's see. Okay, very quick.
Ma son tanto felice perché ritorno da te. La mia canzone ti dice che è il più bel giorno per me. Mamma, son tanto felice viver lontano perché mamma, solo per te la mia canzone vola. Mamma, sarai con me, tu non sarai più sola.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. This is the one with which I start my book.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Memories.
I appreciate it very much. I'm really touched. Thank you, Anna. Yeah. But this is a difficult topic also because let's stay with Pirandello because I don't want to also because I don't want to generalize really. Pirandello and the Sicilian writers, because I teach a course on Sicilian, literature and cinema. So actually, it's not only Pirandello, and that's why I use Sciascia when I picked that expression, stilnovismo patologico, which is this way of perceiving woman, and again, I hope it's no longer that way. When I teach it and I tell students, I say, maybe young people, are different now, I hope. But it is this, and it's also on a very subconscious level. I don't think anybody would admit it, if you were to ask. But the behavior of people will show that, things maybe have not changed that much, especially in the older generation. It's, you got this myth of the mother, the mother who, it would be great if it could be like the Virgin Mother, it is the Mother Madonna that lives for the children, but the son especially, clearly, it sacrifices everything, lives in his function. And then, of course, where does sex comes into all this? It doesn't come. It shouldn't come. So the erotic woman, they cannot be the mother. Has to be a creature. Exactly, it has to be, as he calls them in the La favola del figlio cambiato, le donne, or as Verga, Giovanni Verga, la lupa. Okay, so it's the woman who is a creature of hell. I mean, this is an exaggeration. It's a hyperbole, certainly, but this is what, in a way, the female, the erotic female, that's, the connotation, at least, that the erotic female has. So and Pirandello in that, absolutely. And,
I have a quote from your book on that. So Pirandello's, I quote, "Ideal woman is an imaginary Madonna," you write. "The character he continuously searched for and could never find. He endowed the women he loved with fictional qualities that could never be matched in reality, to his constant disappointment. At the basis of his personality were profound immaturity and egoism." If we can psychoanalyze Pirandello for a second.
Oh gosh, I cannot. Oh no, you had stopped. You froze for a second. No.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just read the quote, Daniela, from your recent book about the ideal woman of Pirandello, which is an imaginary Madonna, a character that he continually searched for and could never find, and was therefore very disappointed, kind of like a fictional character. And this is at the basis of his personality, which was probably, if we want to psychoanalyze him, immature and egoistic and in a certain way. And he also had a quite complex relationship to his own mother, right? The way he depicted her, and the father being the intelligent genius of the family, although he was a donnaiuolo, right?
Oh yeah, no, but just he was quite, yes, but he was quite strict and severe against the father, who was a donnaiuolo. Now, Mama is la Santa Mamma. If you even read Il fu Mattia Pascal, Mattia Pascal has a mother who is inept, totally incapable, unable to do anything. She is la Santa Mammina. She is the perfect, mama che si sacrifica. So still, there is no word of criticism for a woman who cannot do anything, but has, this is the way mama has to be a Santa Mama who doesn't know how to do practical things, but can live for the child. And in that book also, when he falls in love, as Adriano Meis, when he falls in love with Adriana, Adriana appears again as a Santa Mammina. Adriana is also the woman who sacrifices in the house and does everything in silence, modest, pure. And he was, not only he had sexual complexes, but he had fear of the body. He really, and especially a female body, certainly. And you can see that especially in his narrative. There are short stories, in an abundance of short stories, where Pirandello just shows these, hang-ups clearly that he had. I don't know if hang-ups or complexes, whatever you want to call it. There are, for an example, there is this short story called Puberty, where this girl whose name is Dreta, she is going through the phase of puberty, so her body is changing, and she is witnessing this change, and she is disgusted. The words that he uses are revulsion, nausea, just because this girl is becoming a woman, and so sexual, the sexual parts of her body are developing, and she's so upset and she's so disgusted with the transformation of her body that she kills herself. Okay, so here it's not a matter of, you don't have to be a great psychologist or psychoanalyst to realize that something is wrong with somebody who needs to write a story like this. You must have something, pathological in himself. Certainly.
And it was both present in his life and in his works, that there was this strict distinction between the mother/wife and then the woman, la lupa, the she-wolf, that is erotic. Those two cannot coexist. And the way that he redeems the character of a woman is, you're right, Daniela, if I understand it correctly, is through the figure of the actress. The actress shutting herself away from life can somehow be a kind of a woman, or how do we know? So this is, I guess, a good moment to talk about Marta Abba.
Yes, I think that if you go from narrative to theater, and this is what fascinated me really, is that you can see some kind of freedom, or a freeing the character of the woman in theater. So I have not read the book Enza De Francisci wrote, the one on Verga and Pirandello, but yes, and I certainly would like to read it soon. From what I read on the cover, because I sort of Googled it, she talks about going from the page to the stage, the woman is enriched. What I'm saying, absolutely. The woman in his narrative is this woman who is completely, incapable and blocked from any action, any, activities or agency, if you want to say. In the moment in which the woman goes to the stage, she acquires independence, she acquires agency, a voice. And what interested me is why. Okay. So I really think that, Pirandello had a lot of problems with theater, in the sense that he loved it since an early age, but since he was a control freak, he did not want the work he wrote to be changed. And he knew that with theater, that's what happens. You write a text. In fact, if you look at Pirandello's stage directions, they are, they go into details. He tells you what to do, how to move a chair, how to dress, what to put on your head, because he actually, that was his creation and had to be respected.
That's really contradictory with his own philosophy, because at the same time, as you're right, he believed in non conclude, that an opera is never really finished, is never really.
Not only, but I think what I find fascinating is that, okay, so it took him a long time to say, to accept, and he had to see Peter, he had to see Reinhardt, those great, directors in Paris, in Berlin, to eventually come, around and say, oh, yes, they did something differently, they had not thought, but after all, yes, my play is better. So it is a way of realizing, yes, and accepting this change, constant change. But in a way, since Pirandello's philosophy is that life is a continuous change, there is no, if you fix it, you kill it, so it's a constant, movement. And therefore, in a way, theater is closer to life. It's the art form closest to life. The novel on the page never changes, so you can also say that it has killed life, whereas a theater, a play, they renew itself, that changes every time they stage and is produced. is reborn. So it is, in a way, the art form closer to life. And woman is closer to life than man.
Yeah, the body, her hopped up syntax, that's so much closer to.
And not what I am also, and I think I was trying, I forgot my book, the old one, but I think what I was trying to do in that one was to show also that, I mean, okay, even Aristotle, say, woman is life, is matter, and the man is spirit. And the Western tradition is the logos is male, of course. But no, I don't think that woman does not possess logos. She does, but she knows very well its limitations, much more than the man. She knows because of her, not because of something innate, but because precisely of her history, she knows very well that reason often errs, sbaglia, erra, and then very often you get to the truth more with feelings, through feelings, through sentiment, through instinct than through reason. And also Blaise Pascal, who was a mathematician, who was also a scientist, said that, a long time ago. And I think, in fact, that Pirandello gave that title to the book, Mattia Pascal, thinking also of Blaise Pascal in those terms. So the woman, can use the logos just as well as men, but the woman knows that it's got limitation. Now, the poor man has been instructed throughout centuries to be reasonable, to repress feelings, to consider weakness. If you cry, if you get emotional, so has repressed all that part, and it's probably that has impeded him sometimes to see the truth, to see, to understand.
So then when the traditional world starts collapsing, the world of reason starts collapsing, man has no tools to come to terms with it. So an entire identity.
Exactly. So in a way, he's more of a victim. I mean, yes.
Of his own device, no?
Sure, exactly. No doubt about that. But, again, so in a way, you have the female theater, I guess, after especially Martha Abba comes into play. And I don't want to undermine that. And I know very well that he might not have written all those plays with a protagonist woman, protagonist, had he not met, Martha Abba. We cannot tell that. But certainly he was very fond of Eleonora Duse and very envious of D'Annunzio for not being able. Yes, he wrote even plays for her.
Yeah, then Martha Abba performed. That was his way of
exactly. So probably, but certainly he felt, he was appreciating already Eleonora Duse, so he might have been able to write plays like that, even if Martha had not come into the picture. But
so what did Martha do for him? What was her role? How did she change or didn't change his way of approaching theater and the whole question of women?
The thing is, first of all, certainly fell in love with her. I mean, there is no doubt they was infatuated, they was taken by her. If you read the letters, that he wrote to her, it's quite, obvious, quite clear. But although I was very lucky to be able, I got my NEH when the letters were finally disclosed, Martha Abba's letters. They were
in Pietro Frassica's edition, right?
They were at Princeton, and actually she had left them there. And I read them because I had the time with the NEH. I read them through, I call them microfilm. They had not been published yet. So I read also the few letters that they had not been included then in the Mondadori edition. But the thing that upset me most, that's why I made, this parenthesis, because I say he was in love with her, absolutely. But what upset me most about those letters, which are a mine of information about everything, about, the theater, about history, about fascism, and is the fact that the first edition, printed edition that came out was came from this country. It was actually Princeton University Press, I think, that published it and called the book. It was a collection. It was not the entire, epistolario, and it was entitled "Love Letters," Pirandello's Love Letters.
That sells, right? So yeah,
exactly. But you don't expect it from a distinguished, university press. So 6 months later, Mondadori came out with the entire, and it was just the English version is just a massacre, because not only the letters were chosen without criteria. I mean, the criteria we know by just reading the title, Love Letters.
Yeah.
But within each letter, you don't know how many parts were deleted without, when you do that from an original text, you put the how you call it?
In brackets.
In brackets, you put the points, suspension points, or whatever you call them, in brackets. No, they were all as if Pirandello had actually written suspension points here and there. So it was really a very, very, very poor job of editing. Anyway, so, but the thing is that, yes, she helped him. She became the protagonist, and those plays, the first reason why I wrote the book was because I felt, the old book, because I felt that is, again, the Pirandello, the male works were the important ones. So you have all the narratives, and then you have 6 characters, although I've got my questions and my points about that. You have Henry IV, you have even the plays where the male raisonnier, because yes, as the scepter, so is the protagonist, and has actually the logos. But, with Martha Abba coming and he starting writing all those plays, they had not been studied much, with the exception of Come tu mi vuoi, also because Greta Garbo had and I Giganti della Montagna, because it was the last unfinished play. They had, they was studied enough. The others were not only put aside, but the few words were critical. They were not up to the level of the others. Okay. Why? Because they were female. That's my argument. So I thought that we had to rescue those plays, and that was my idea, my desire, also because I had the luck of getting those letters, to be so, fortunate to be able to read them right away. So
they sound like a treasure trove. I had never read those plays actually before, Daniela. So I think you made an excellent, convincing case of why we should dedicate more attention to these later plays, because his whole vision of how women should interact, or it's kind of like a substitute for whatever he hadn't lived, right? It's all there. His idea about the actress, the art being as a better kind of form of life. It's in those plays.
He actually rescued women there is no doubt. But at the same time, he never overcomes his, complexes, sexual complexes. And you see it over and over. Besides, while he was writing these, plays, he would write to Martha Abba and say, "Oh, it's not possible that you like Melot, that Henri Bernstein play." No, I cannot believe it, because if you liked it when you saw it, it means in translation they took away all that scene. That's a scene that I cannot even think that you could like. A person with such a noble spirit as you, that you could actually accept to play something like that.
Yeah, he wrote, I quote, "I have too much respect for you, for your exquisite and highly noble feminine sensitivity, to give you even a remote hint of what was happening in the scene between the two lovers. It is impossible that you would have even thought of agreeing to perform a part like the one of the lover who accepted to commit such horrors on stage." Right?
Bravo, I'm glad that you got it. I should have them, but I didn't bring quotes. But
No, I'm prepared. I'm prepared. All right. So yeah, this is, and then he comments another one that I wanted to mention when you said how he was writing one of the plays and went down to the beach and was just appalled by the exhibition of flesh, of certe donne, certa carne, come si fa? Something like that cannot be done. So I guess not only did he have these kind of complexes in real life, but if I understand correctly, he didn't even overcome them in writing. Not even there, a catharsis came about.
They come out in the sense that, for example, I have one thing they advise everybody to read, which is very short, and it's not very much study, I think, is the little, it appears in the volume Novelle per un anno, but he actually didn't consider a novella, and he's right. He called it a sketch, and it's called Sgombero. I forgot how it was. Eviction. It was translated, but mistranslated with eviction, because I think that's not the right chance. Sgombero gives you really the idea of wanting to, for the protagonist, wanting to free herself, to get rid of everything, that was inside. And it is a monologue of a woman. And it's beautiful. It is that is really an attack at the male patriarchal society that exploits women and then condemns them when they sin. It is daughter father. That's why it's also very interesting, because we always had the relationship mother son, and here we have the daughter accusing and making putting his father, who is dead.
Oh right, yes.
Oh yeah, only after that, only when he's a corpse she can do that, of course. Put him on trial. No, it is very powerful. But still, so Pirandello knew very well that the patriarchal society was responsible of making women victims. Pirandello knew very well that women had the same impulses, the same sexual feelings as men had, but he could not cope with it. And actually, if you read the last, I think Non si sa come is probably the last play.
A little bit,
because I Giganti della Montagna he never finished it. He started writing it much earlier. But I think as a complete play, probably Non si sa come is the last one. You can see that too. I mean, and not only, eroticism and sex was for him very hard to take, even in men. Because if you think, in this play, which is also, it's a combination of three short stories, and one is the one that's most interesting for us, is the one called Nel Gorgo. In Non si sa come, the main protagonist is committed a murder when he was a young kid, accidental murder, that he was able to hide and nobody ever found out. And then, he becomes mad when he actually betrayed his wife with her best friend one night, one day, in the heat of the summer, they both lost their control. But the thing is, they becomes mad not because of his act, because he thought, if she were able to do that, means that even my wife could do that.
That's the conclusion he makes, right? Yeah.
So, and that's why he becomes mad. So, I think Joanola or Alonge, I think Joanola said that certainly for Pirandello, eroticism were more serious than murder.
Right.
Well, adultery, let's put it that way. An adulterous act was a crime more serious, more severe than murder. And, so I really see some Catholicism, although he was an atheist, in his, it must have been ingrained.
Really?
Yeah, because I cannot, explain it in other way, but I think that's also what makes it fascinating, I think, and what makes his works fascinating, precisely this contradiction, this paradox.
Yeah. Yeah, so to wrap up, at the end, I wanted you to comment perhaps on what you call, you write at the end of your book that Pirandello perhaps wanted to stage himself finally as the mother of all mothers. So he kind of appropriates metaphors of childbirth for artistic creation, right? So, and artistic creation, you write, is necessarily male. So how do we understand this assimilation of the mother by the artist? Isn't this kind of yet another step, towards like not helping the female cause? Or
Oh yeah, because maternity for Pirandello, we didn't talk about, La Nuova Colonia of Lazarus, but maternity was this high value, this il sommo bene della donna, no doubt about that. But, but he wanted to overcome it, to, even that. I am superior because I'm an artist. You woman, you create beings who are mortal. I create immortal creatures, So I think
he's like Victor Frankenstein figure who wants to create a being better than the original humans, and then their creation ends up betraying him, failing, so he's more disappointed than before. But we have that.
I think Michael did write something about this, il colloquio coi personaggi with I think, with his mother that, appears and tells him and teaches him so many good things. And so in a way you say, wow, you see, mother is teaching Pirandello, things that Pirandello should learn and follow. But it is Pirandello's creation, this mother, okay? So that's why I consider Pirandello the mother of the mothers, because he has created and he has made even his mother immortal, her words immortal, because he has given it to her.
You call him in multiple places in the books you write. He's kind of androgynous in this sense. So it's not so much that he does redeem women in his theater to a certain degree, but the actual interesting, more complex movement that we have in his work is that of him becoming the mother, him seeing himself as kind of a woman at the end of the day. Daniela, we have two questions, brief questions. Do you mind if I put them on the screen very quickly? One is by Ursula Fanning. Daniela, do you have any thoughts on uno di più and its representation of the marital and parent-child relationship? Would you like to comment?
Yes, that's a very good question, in the sense that uno di più, I mean, here you have a mother, yes. The real mother is the mother of the father, la nonna. Okay, for those who don't know, it's a couple where the wife is sort of a virago. It's an erotic woman, and that is already a sign that she should not be a mother.
Right.
She is a failed mother. But we know that because she takes over this husband every night, and the little girl, the child, can hear the laughter of this mother, and she's scared about it. So the mother of the little girl, is very upset because her husband is giving money and is supporting his mother, la nonna. Okay, la nonna, he would like to have her live with them, but the wife doesn't accept. So la nonna has a room rented. They don't have money, so the wife is always complaining, say, why do you have to give money to, your mother? You have to give us, we need it. And she's una di più. We cannot afford to have uno di più. And this little girl hears this word, uno di più, all the time. And at the end, she kills herself, the child. So here, this is a clear, short story where you see that the real mother, the one that sacrifices herself, is la nonna. But the mother of the child, because she's an erotic woman, she's punished. She cannot be a mother. So her creature is going to die. Okay, I'm sorry. Maybe I did it too quickly and not very clearly. But as I said, my English is rusty, and my, language is very slow right now. Okay, suo marito. Oh yeah, oh gosh.
Another question by John P. Welly. Thank you.
Ciao, John. Oh yes, I like you very much, and we are all friends. I haven't seen him in a long time. Suo marito. This is, it would take very long to answer this question well, but suo marito, is suo marito is the first the title given the first time, but then when he publishes it again, because he wanted to revise it all, but he didn't succeed in revising it all, but revised only the first 4 or 5 chapters, he changed the title and called it Giustino Roncella Nato Boggiolo, because the protagonist is Silvia Roncella, who is a writer, okay? And Giustino, his Boggiolo, is her husband, who actually is the manager. You know, he is the one that finds her jobs, finds her contract to write. She writes actually a play called La Nuova Colonia. In the second edition, Pirandello, after having himself written La Nuova Colonia, changed the title L'Isola Nuova. That's the title that he puts in. But this is, again, the example of a woman who is a very successful writer, and therefore she cannot be a mother. The child, I'm going to make it very short, the child dies.
Yeah.
The first scene, besides, is very, popular, famous, impressive, when she is delivering the baby and she's risking her life and the baby's life, and at the same time, on stage, her play is born, great successful. But then at the end of the book, I mean, she has another great success and her child dies. So you can, my dear woman, you cannot have it all. You want to be a great artist? Forget about being mother too. Okay?
Right.
So it's really, you can see the rivalry here. You can see how, as you said, Anna, very well before, he wants to be a mother too. And he's going, but then he's the creator of works.
Yeah. Daniela, would you have time for 2 more questions? We can keep the answers.
Yes, I mean, if Michael approves, I don't want you then to be reproached by Michael.
Not if you approve, Michael. Okay, he approves. All right. So let's see. One is by Paola Bonifacio. Considering Pirandello as philosopher, do you see any continuities with other, all quite misogynist philosophers, particularly German, historical or theoretical? So more of a philosophical question.
No, this is a too difficult question.
Okay. So
it's too difficult question. Yeah, I don't want to get involved with the German philosophy, and I don't know that much, Paola. Sorry, but
all right. So Bradford Mazzoni has a longer question.
I do. Yes, I think there are, though. Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. I'm curious about. This is from Bradford Mazzoni, who, by the way, is just about to publish a.
The translation. That's a great novel. I'm very happy. Bravo.
Yeah. So he's wondering, I'm curious about your comment regarding the teachability of Pirandello. I found that the difference between teaching Sei Personaggi between these 2 years was dramatic. Students seemed to have less trouble grasping the key concepts, the inadequacy of language as the time went on. Is Pirandello getting easier to teach as these ideas because more part of our curriculum, I guess, right? So how about, how do you think there's a difference in the past 10 years? What would have affected the teachability of Pirandello in the past 15 years?
But, to tell you the truth, I taught it for more than 10 years. I taught him, I think, for more than 10 years. And I couldn't tell you. Of course, I have a small population of students, so I don't want to generalize. But still, I didn't notice that much different. The students would respond quite well, different even 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But certainly right now, I think it's probably easy precisely because of this plethora of media, and everybody knows what everybody is saying all over the world, and how all this is misunderstood, misinterpreted, related with different words. And so I think there are plenty of examples today to give to students to make the argument relevant and timely to them, more probably than at least when I went to school. Certainly, when we didn't have cellular phone, we didn't have computers. So no, absolutely.
It almost feels like Pirandello now, with the digital revolution and our almost entirely virtual life-based existence, becomes topical again. We're kind of at the beginning of the 20th century again, so it's maybe even easier to teach him now. Final question, also from Bradford, Daniela. How do we square Marta Ayala in L'Esclusa, which I think is one of the best novels ever written, by the way, on from a female perspective, who is described as very beautiful but far from silent, unattainable, with the idealized, distant women that characterize the mature work.
No, you're right. She is certainly, a quite, not, I don't want to say independent, because she's forced into, a role by the patriarchal society around, but certainly, yes. I mean, she succeeds in doing, even besides the fact that she's beautiful, in doing what she wants. And actually, at the end, Pirandello makes her triumph when she comes back, accepted by her husband after having betrayed him, really, in reality. But again, she goes back to, she couldn't survive without the patriarchal society. If she had been such an independent woman, she would not have gone back. She would have, stayed with the man that she loved and she had an affair with.
Yeah.
So the fact is that, after all, she's still a victim. But yes, but you are right that, he could, really realize in his works, even in those short stories that I told you, that those women are victims, of a patriarchal society. But still, what for me is still puzzling and fascinating at the same time is the fact that he did not overcome his own phobias.
Right.
Neither
in life, nor in writing. All right.
Yes.
I would like to end this with a final quote from your book that just came out, which you say is a bit provocative, but is my favorite part of the book at the end. So you write, is there any hope for a near change in how Italian society views women and literature in general? How could it be realized, this hope, if this arretratezza culturale has become part of Italians' makeup? From where could some hope come? And you give an answer. At the risk of being provocative, I would suggest a hypothesis, maybe from the new Italians, the immigrants who are still struggling to be accepted by public opinion. Not all thieves and rapists, as some politicians maintain, must have come who instead came seeking for a better life. Italy's hope may lie with the Africans, Serbs, Albanians, and Poles, who are not coming as conquerors and exploiters, but looking for better conditions for their children to be included in the community. And then you ask, as intelligent and honest Italian young people tend in increasing numbers to leave the old country that offers them no opportunity, it just might be from the outside, from the new immigrants, that change can come. Or will they too become inflicted with Italian mammismo?
Well, I have no answer to that. That's why I finished with the question. If anybody has it, I'll be very happy. But we will see. We will see.
Right. So, Daniela, thank you so much. This has been incredibly enriching. I thank you so much for your time. In the middle of a catastrophe in Texas, we're talking about Pirandello and women. It's been
Anna, thank you, because that was for me just a breath of fresh air. I mean, cool, warm air. But again, I apologize for, maybe my confusion or my, articulation, which was not
at all. You're wonderful.
I am really, in a phase of aphasia almost. But thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. And I think it's a remarkable enterprise. And thank you, of course, thank PSA as well.
Thank you, Michael.
I will follow the next ones.
All right. So our next meeting is going to be in Italian and if you can participate, Daniela, I will be very happy to see you there again. We will talk about Pirandello Digitale. This is a project, the Centro di Informatica Umanistica at the University of Catania, where I just spent 2 years doing research, and specifically with Professor Antonio Siqueira, Antonio Di Silvestro. They're currently working on a digital edition of Pirandello's Opera Omnia. So I will talk about that with them next time in Italian. In the meantime, everyone, thank you so much for your patience. Become members of the PSA, support this work. Thank you, Michael Subialka, who is here silently watching us. And again, thank you so much, Daniela.
You are so welcome. Sorry for having gone over time, Michael.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. All right.